Millennial Gamer Things, Part 2, Handhelds. I'm not talking Game Boy Advance, Nintendo DS, or even the PSP. I'm talking Nokia N-Gage, Gamecom, and whatever other flops came along in this era. The Nokia N-Gage in particular was probably the coolest and had the most potential. I remember seeing the ads and I thought of ways to justify needing a gaming phone with a singular plan to my mom, but as you can imagine, that didn't work out too well. The biggest problem with the original N-Gage was that you had to put the edge of the phone against your face for phone calls. If you wanted to switch games, you had to take the battery out. In 2004, the N-Gage QD was revealed and eventually released. It was a slightly smaller, more round version of the original. They did right some wrongs, like the game cartridge slot and the earpiece, but they also took away MP3 playback and the FM radio feature of the original. Nokia did have a third version in the works, but it never came to production. And with the Nintendo DS being released later in 2004, it was the final nail in the coffin for what was the N-Gage. The N-Gage did have a decent but rather small lineup of games such as Tony Hawk's Pro Skater, Splinter Cell, SSX, even Civilization and Call of Duty made it onto the N-Gage. I ended up buying one later on as a teen, and I even found the sealed copy of Tomb Raider when I worked at GameStop in 2016. I unfortunately don't have the charger anymore, nor could I figure out the emulator, otherwise I would be showing you guys some clips of actual gameplay. I personally feel like the N-Gage was ahead of its time, especially with its ability to let players play online against others via the N-Gage Arena. I'm not saying if Nokia brought it back they'd kill the competition, but I do think they'd be a serious contender with the way mobile gaming has taken off the past few years. Tiger Electronics. Tiger had it all back in the day. Plug and play, and most notably the black and white handhelds. Tiger had handhelds for licensed games like Crash Bandicoot and Mortal Kombat, and they had some that were more generic like hockey, baseball, or even football. These were overall a cheaper way to handheld game as they came with an LCD screen and typically just that one game. All you needed was some batteries and you were all set. I can remember having a few of these over the years as a kid and just genuinely having fun with them. Plug and play games. Much like games on console, plug and play games had something for everyone. Poker, Mortal Kombat, Atari 2600, and some originals as well. All you needed was about $20 to $30, some batteries, and a TV, and you were all set. Most plug and play games typically had at least 5 if not more games on them, depending on what you got. I can remember having fun with these as a kid, and that was my first step into retro gaming to an extent. Fast forward to today, and the plug and play consoles have stepped up just a little bit. Typically it's the same old Genesis clone with 50 plus games, maybe wireless controllers, but the cool thing is you have a cartridge slot and controller ports so you can use your original cartridges and controllers if you wanted to. LodgeNet. If you ever stayed at a hotel from the mid-90s to 2012, you probably remember seeing a funky looking SNES, N64, or even GameCube controller with extra buttons attached to the TV with what seemed like a phone cord. This was a LodgeNet controller. LodgeNet was a company that partnered with Nintendo, and their service was like pay-per-view but for video games. You basically load up the menu, find the game you want to play, and after a minute or so of loading, you were essentially streaming the game you selected from the LodgeNet servers. You paid about $6 an hour, and after that hour, you could buy more time, and I also believe they had a day pass that you could get as well. Games were always single player, and there was no way to plug in another controller due to the difference in plug types. Plus, LodgeNet basically used a cable box and not a game console integrated into the TV or something like that. I know it seems weird to think that you could stream games as far back as the 90s. I can remember using it once on a trip myself, and it felt like I was playing on native hardware. It was just that smooth and lag free. And let's not forget, Sega also managed to make it work with the Sega Channel 2 back in the day. But unfortunately, due to the evolution of technology, LodgeNet ended up filing for Chapter 11 bankruptcy at the end of 2012. According to Wikipedia, LodgeNet also had Game Boys available on airlines as well. G4 TV. I'm not talking about that piss poor revival. I'm talking about the G4 we all grew up with. Back when we had Cheat, Attack of the Show, Cinematech, and most importantly, X-Play. Long story short, G4 was basically the channel for gamers. You wanted reviews and peeks at the latest games? G4 had you. Wanted all the E3 news over the summer? G4 had you. And shout out to Morgan Webb and Olivia Munn. Anyway, G4 eventually died out, airing shows around gaming and technology to non-stop reruns of Cops, Star Trek, and Cheaters. And then the channel got renamed to the Esquire Network, and the rest, unfortunately, is history. Late nights. Especially over the summer as a teen, I can remember staying up late with homies, playing Bad Company 2, just shooting the shit as we played different games, or even watching Netflix when Xbox was pushing Avatars heavy during the 360 days. Go to sleep around 4 a.m., wake up around 8 or 9, go skate later in the day, and then it was back on the box. Unfortunately, the years keep coming and they don't stop coming. And now I have this thing called obligations in a 9 to 5. Granted, I still have nights where I stay up till about 4 a.m., but they aren't as often as they used to be. Custom soundtracks. The OG Xbox is the first system I can remember that allowed for players to use custom soundtracks in games. And it was super simple. First, you had to burn your CDs to the system's hard drive, then find a game that allowed for custom soundtracks, and then you change your audio settings in said game. I can remember listening to the Collision Course EP from Jay-Z and Linkin Park on repeat as I played through games like Tony Hawk's Underground. The 360 had that same feature early on, and by that time I expanded my music taste a little and was blasting Korn, Static X, and the Gorillaz to name a few. It wasn't until later on in the PS3's lifecycle, from what I remember, that you could play downloaded music and even use said music for your created wrestlers' entrances in games like SmackDown vs. Raw. RenderWare. RenderWare is a graphics rendering engine that was developed by Criterion, yes, that Criterion, and it was widely used by a ton of studios in the 90s up until about 2018 actually, from what I can find. If you grew up gaming in this era, I can guarantee you played one of their games. I know I did. Some notable entries would be the GTA trilogy, Dark Watch, Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 3, The Warriors, Mortal Kombat Deadly Alliance, Deception, and Armageddon, Manhunt 1 and 2, Killer 7, Crackdown, Bully, all the burnouts as well. That's it for episode 2. Do you remember LodgeNet or Tiger's LCD games? Let me know. And be sure to hit that subscribe button.